This week, we hear some great news out of Fantasy Flight and a digital version of one of our favorites.
Then it's our topic of the week, skill versus luck. How do you strike the right balance between strategy and chance? I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is the Roll for Crit podcast.
This week, Fantasy Flight announced a brand new RPG, that's a role-playing game for the layman out there, and it is called The End of the World. So,
Well, we already lost.
we're done. That's it. You just open the book and it's like, world's over. You're good. No, there actually is a game there. You may think, oh, another apocalyptic RPG game, not too thrilling or interesting, but there are some twists. So first of all, there are 4 books in the series that they've announced thus far, at least. And the first one coming out is going to be Zombie Apocalypse. That will be later this year. The rest will follow. There's one about gods. There's one about aliens. Basically, it's different ways of the world ending in each book. And the twist is that rather than like a typical RPG, creating your own character based on choosing your race or whatever your attributes that you want, in this game, you actually are yourself. So all your attributes and your character traits and even your equipment is based on what you as a player, as your real human self, actually have access to and what your actual personality is in real life.
So, I feel like this is going to be some fun part. Like, okay, I am a good person. Like, no, you're not. You're an ass.
Yeah. There's the potential for some arguments, some disagreements right off the bat there.
No, but I think that's really cool. Like, it brings a sort of surreal, build your own, like, you are actually in the game. And
doesn't everyone always talk about what would you do if there was a zombie apocalypse? It's not what would you do if you were a warrior in a zombie apocalypse. It's, what would you actually do? So this gives you the chance to really live that.
Yeah, and I think that what also is, I don't know if you have said this or not, is where you were located.
Right, yeah, I sort of not really mentioned it. But yeah, it's like you actually start, like for your equipment, it's whatever you can get to. So it might just be your cell phone, it might be your wallet, it might be a knife in the house.
Right, but let's say you start in zombie apocalypse, because that's the first one.
Right.
Like whether you start in New York City,
right,
or whether you're starting out in the middle of nowhere, like where I live.
Yeah, it could be very different scenarios.
Which is really interesting. I think these sets can bring a lot of sort of a new take on it, like. Sort of like how video games, when you build your own, even though you build your own character, a lot of people, I'm one of them, some people don't, but you actually build myself to be me.
Right. You something like your avatar, sometimes you want it to look like you.
So this is literally, yes, you're actually going to have to do that, except you cannot lift, 20 carcasses of radioactive roaches, 6 different guns. No, you actually only lift what you can.
And it'll make it, it must make it so much more interesting just in terms of the way they make combat and stuff like that, because you're just a regular human. No one has any kind of special abilities, at least at the outset.
Well, I think what that also is going to bring into is the fact that there's going to be probably more about running. It's not just fighting. You're going to probably they're going to have to put more into sneaking around. That's going to have to be a lot bigger, like an important role. It's definitely going to feel a lot better if you do more exercise now, because your stats actually going to the gym will help your stats in the game. This is all just secretly a way to get everyone to become fit.
You want to invite some jocks over. Please, we need you. You don't understand. We really need you.
But I think like each book can bring something really fun and new. Like you just mentioned those 4. But I mean, like I'm sure you can do one that's Castaway version, like stuck on an island.
Right.
We can do a lot. They should call us.
Going outside the apocalypse theme.
But still, like you can do apocalypse. Like I was thinking more like what's that? The movie that everyone thinks is terrible. Waterworld, is it?
Yeah.
Like it's like that, like flooding. Like the entire world floods, maybe an ice age kind of thing.
Well, supposedly so each book has 5 different scenarios, and within each one there are different post-apocalyptic endings that could happen. So potentially you could keep your game going for a long time, and maybe like all the maybe it becomes like Shaun of the Dead, and you like are using the zombies as house pets and stuff at the end of the, things can continue. So I'm really curious to see how they take it, but it sounds super fun and creative. And
do they have a date, anything? When
they just said the first one will be out and by the end of this year. They're going to be $40 each book. So if there's enough content there, it sounds like it would be pretty reasonable.
Have they said how at the rate of release of the other books?
Nothing. Just probably next year.
I will say though, I'd really love also how the books look. Like,
yeah, the art.
Each are, but they're all also a different color. So I just feel like they're gonna look really nice stacked on a shelf next to each other.
It's a nice presentation. So that's that. End of the world. Check out the links. Look forward to it.
Speaking of new games, if you're a fan of any kind of those games where there's hidden roles like Mafia, Resistance, you probably heard of One Night Ultimate Werewolf. The Bazier Games, the company that makes that, is releasing a new version, or I guess it's sort of a standalone that is also an expansion, of the game called One Night Ultimate Werewolf Daybreak. Pretty much, it's a lot of new roles, so new ways to hide and lie about each other. We don't know really any of the roles just yet. Yeah,
it's gonna be a Kickstarter. I think at the end of September they're gonna launch it, but
we're seeing a lot of the big games just going through Kickstarter now.
Yeah, and it's interesting that they announced the Kickstarter before they even launched.
No, a lot of people are doing now. They'll announce the Kickstarter. You can actually follow them to tell you when they actually start the Kickstarter, which is sort of nice because it would be a pain. Like, we're starting Kickstarter when. Yeah.
Check Kickstarter. Check rollforcrit.com every day, and you can find it. But so we haven't played it, but we got to see
it in action.
Some of the original One Night Ultimate Werewolf at Gen Con, and it looks pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, the artwork. I love the artwork alone. That it just makes that. I always judge things on artwork first off.
Judge a book by its cover.
Well, and then I go open the book. I look at the book cover first, then I open it.
Right.
But I mean, the game itself looked a lot of fun. There's a lot of switching around, so the person who's a werewolf might not always be the werewolf, you can do lying. A lot of great
think they're the werewolf, but they're not.
Yeah, so it looks like a really fun game. A great way if you want to do. I think it would be hilarious to do drunk, so you can mess with people and they have no idea what the hell.
There's even a drunk character in the game.
That's true.
Yeah, it might have been more fun to even watch than to play, because just being able to see all the thing that's going on. Yeah, but anyway, so that should be cool.
We'll tell you soon as soon as we find out what the new roles are.
Indeed. Not a new game, but an addition to an old standby, Fantasy Flight. Again, this is a little while ago. They launched a new thing online called the X-Wing Mission Control Generator, something like that. Basically, if you're fans of the game Star Wars X-Wing, it's a miniatures game where you fight with ships from Star Wars. You can now create your own scenarios online with their actual custom official website that lets you design your own maps, lets you choose your own ships from up to any of the expansions that are available, and you can set your own mission goals and scenarios. So you could need people to do different things, to set different win conditions instead of just attacking and just killing all the other ships. So I think this is a really awesome thing. I love when, we love any kinds of variants and that kind of creativity that fans show. And for Fantasy Flight to embrace that and to give people their own official outlet to it is really cool. And I'm excited to see what's the creative stuff is that people come up with.
Well, I think another big thing is, like you said, you can use all the expansions, which makes it really easy for you to test out and see how things work out. Because I don't own we own the base, but we don't really own everything. And I have a friend who does. And I was talking with him about it and how he was how he plans out different things and some of the weird strategies like a dual Millennium Falcon and things like that. And with they're releasing the new ones are doing like bounty hunt mercenaries now, which can be on either side. So that really changes them of what you can do. And then, even though it's not technically X-Wing, with Armada coming out, there maybe you can make a way like a weird mission like you play as the Armada ships, but if the X-Wing pack and the TIE Fighter pack come close to each other, you zoom in, then play X-Wing or something.
Whoa, that's a whole other level. You stop and zoom in and play a different game, and then when that skirmish is resolved, you go back to the big guys.
So maybe some weird way you can mess around with that.
That's scary, but yeah, that is really cool. So that's awesome. It's the kind of thing that I personally am never. I'm usually not in video games when there's a level creator. I'm always like, oh, cool, and then I make like one thing. But I love to see other people's things that they create. So I'm mostly just looking forward to other people. So you guys out there, make some fun stuff. Link below.
Also on the digital front, Dungeons & Dragons is partnering up with Backflip Studios to make a digital version of the game. Now, this isn't exactly the game. It's not the turn-based dice rolling. This is real-time, it's supposedly real-time movement. From what we've seen the artwork, it's sort of like a little bit like the regular artwork with a little bit of a cartoony splash to it. Like, bigger heads and eyes and stuff. But it looks really interesting, and apparently there is still a dungeon lord DM to take control. We don't know much beyond that, but from the look of it, it's going to be, from what we've seen, it's going to be on mobile, so like pads and phones. We'll see whether you have to be in the same room, whether you can all be far away.
I'm assuming if it's mobile, it's got to have an online component. Yeah, it looks kind of like the video was kind of vague about what the game
really
actually
it
is.
was everyone talking about how much they love D&D and be happy to work on this project.
But it kind of looked like a side-scrolling like beat 'em up game almost. So I wasn't sure. It almost seemed like maybe the dungeon master part is you actually get to design the maps or something like that.
Maybe, but we should say they have confirmed there will be an owl bear.
Yes, that's our scoop for you today. Owl bear confirmed. But anyway, hey, it's cool to see. Dungeons and Dragons video games have been successful in the past, so
we'll see how this goes. I think going more on to video games, I think one thing that this would work perfect for is the Wii U. With the DM could have maybe a gamepad that somehow controls things, while the other players have to use the Wiimotes.
Yeah, that would be really cool. They probably won't make it, but
of course not.
But they should. I think that's all the news we've got for you this week, which means it's time for our Kickstarter Pickstarter. My Kickstarter pick this week is a fun one. So we were just saying last week I talked about Jane Austen's Matchmaker. This week we're going the opposite direction. My game is called Divorce the Game.
He in no way chose this because of his last pick.
No, I don't only choose my Kickstarters based on thematic reasons. Maybe I do. Anyway, Divorce the Game is a 2-player card game in which you are a couple getting divorced, each player. Sorry, polygamous people, this game won't cater to you. But essentially, you each have a deck of cards, and on your turn, you draw 2, and you choose one for yourself and one that you have to give to your partner. So it has different assets and all your things that you're trying to split up and that you want to keep, but the idea is you want to end up with better stuff than your opponent. So maybe there's stuff in there that's not worth as much, or maybe there's some cards in there that are lawyers, and you can do things like bribe the lawyers to get a better deal, or you might have alimony and you give them that card and you get more points for not having it. And of course, the big thing everybody wants is the child cards. So you're trying to do your best.
You want to get us away. That's losing money.
Well, that's true. I don't know. It depends on your perspective. But anyway, the game was designed by Andrew Yoon, who I actually am familiar with from he's in the video game industry. Used to be on one of my favorite video game podcasts, Weekend Confirmed, and writes articles from the video game world. So I guess it's cool to see him. He's branching out to tabletop games as well. It seems like a really funny and fun concept. Divorce the Game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of silly. I'm sure there's great ways you can make stories like, oh, you can have this. I'm keeping a Ferrari. But is there a cheat card? Like if you're opening hand, you get prenub. Like, I get prenub. I don't have to give you any more cards.
If only. In the expansion, maybe.
Yes, the prenub expansion. It's like just if you get it in the beginning, it's great. Otherwise, it's worthless.
Lots of laughs, I'm sure will be had.
You can do it right after the marriage one.
Right. That's a good thematic. That's a double feature.
You can just have like a love day. Like you start off with all the love games, like Ladies and Gentlemen.
Yeah, love.
And
letter.
then you end with divorce.
I like this. It's going to be a new upcoming feature on Roll for Crit.
We'll do a special love theme. That's Valentine's Day.
But yours could be related to divorce.
If divorce, you think of punching someone in the face, then yeah. My Kickstarter Pickstarter is Double Dragon by Artistic Justice. What's really awesome about this game is it's actually officially licensed to use the characters like Bruce Lee, Brian Lee, and other martial art characters from all those awesome martial art movies. And they actually have bosses, which you fight, like from those movies, like Ivan Castle, Tiger, I think it's IP or it. I'm gonna butcher all these names, but
we're Americans. We don't know. We don't know.
Anyways, it looks like this. It comes with these awesome miniatures for all the characters. You get this cool board and dice, and you make the levels, and you fight, and you actually get cards that are signature moves for all the characters. So you actually have all whatever their moves are. And of course, they're releasing more. They've actually backed it to a lot of other games. Like Level 99 is actually going to submit a character for them and stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, they have like I think 10 different people working with them. So it just looks like it's going to be this amazing, fun game that's going to have everything you love if you like martial arts at all. It's $45 to back to get the whole thing. They just add just adding when we record this episode today, the day of recording. Just add a bunch of new tiers because they're going to do add-ons and stuff, and it just looks like a lot of fun.
Is Jackie Chan in the game?
Not that we know
of. Okay.
Like they haven't announced all the bosses or characters and stuff, so we don't know if all these characters. We don't know if Chuck Norris is going to be in it.
That might be a little.
Actually, in their video, one of the images looks like Chuck Norris, so they
You
show.
don't think they would have led with that if they had him?
It'd be I think that's the thing. They showed an image. It's like, is he in it or not? Like,
maybe
see,
he
look,
is.
look what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've already backed it. I'm excited to get my hands on that if it comes through. So look into that. Look into also Divorce, as well as plenty of our other Kickstarter Pickstarters.
Good Kickstarters. Yeah, the links are below. And I think it's time for our last segment of the show.
Luck versus skill.
Our topic of the week.
This week's topic, skill versus luck. An age-old debate which makes many people angry when they lose a game just because of a bad dice roll. We've mentioned dice shaming on here before, and it is legitimate. Some of those dice are out there to get you.
They definitely are. Definitely in my case.
However, at the same time, we look at other games in which there's no luck component at all. So if there's one good strategy, that strategy always wins.
Right. That's definitely the danger. I guess what is the... first of all, I want to start with a weird question. Mm-hmm. Is there...
Yes, I do have hair.
What is the difference between... are we talking versus... luck versus randomization? Are we touching on randomized? Because I'm thinking of, for instance, like variable powers versus everyone starts off with the same abilities in a game.
All right. Usually, when it comes to skill versus luck, people would consider luck like roll of a die,
right.
Drawing random cards. More like you have no control to predict what's going to happen in the game.
Right.
I don't think that counts before the game starts.
Okay.
Like receiving.
Okay.
Like for Cosmic Encounter, receiving certain aliens.
So that's sort of a different.
Usually because also you draw 3, so it's really you're still choosing.
So I'll start by saying, well, you're talking about dice rolls. I mean, that's the number one thing.
Yes, it is.
In gaming. I mean, that is luck incarnate right there. I think the best thing that a lot of games do, especially recent games, is they give you can get cards and abilities that modify your dice rolls. So like Firefly, or I mean a bunch of games or even like D&D with whatever weapons you have, you get bonuses, or like Arkham Horror, same thing. For you get whatever your roll is, add 2 to it, or if it's in a certain skill set, you get to add 2 to it.
Yeah, what you're really touching on is the best way to still have your randomness, because I personally like a little bit of randomness. I think it just makes things fun. Sure, you're going to get that bad roll or something, but what you're doing on it is ways to stack the deck. Mm-hmm. You're talking about dice rolls, but really it works the same thing with cards. When you build any kind of deck for a living trading card game, any kind of card game, you only have, if you build one of each card, you only get one out of 52, 1 out of 60, whatever your deck size is. However, many games, for example, Magic the Gathering, lets you have up to 4 copies of a card in the deck.
Right.
So that way, even though it's random what you draw, you're going to stack it to your favor to get those certain cards. So when you look at a lot of the standard decks, you'll probably see maybe only, excluding basic lands, which is like the money, you maybe see only really 10 different cards in there because just 4 copies of them or something. 10 at most. That's actually high, maybe more like 5 or 6. And the same thing goes for like Doomtown, for example. In the game, you actually play against each other with poker hands, but you don't actually make your deck with one of each symbol. So you actually stack the deck in a way.
You can have multiple of each suit and, and number.
Which is funny because then they also made a mechanic that actually punishes you for stacking it too well. Because if you draw 2 ace of spades, that means you're cheating. And if someone's cheating and someone's playing the law, which if I'm in it, I will probably be playing the law, they're going to punish you for cheating.
Yeah, I think that is probably the best way to go about it, at least in my opinion, to make it so anything could happen, but you can make it so it's in your favor at least, so you have a pretty good idea of what might happen. So it's not like a guarantee, but at least you don't feel totally helpless.
The big thing when it comes to skills, like I mentioned before, sometimes in certain games, there becomes one strategy which is really the only strategy you can use. In which case it's sort of not as fun because the first person to get that wins. The best way to deal with that is, we actually see this more in video games, is what happens is, let's say strategy A, like this character A, it does the best. So he's killing everyone. But then character B comes along, who's really good at countering character A. Strategy. So then everyone switches to B, and then you have another one to C, so you have to make it so each one counters the other one. So then you make pretty much a circle, and then it makes it much more balanced. That's the best. It's very hard though, because if you make one guy who can not be countered in any way, you're sort of doomed. And I think that's exactly what happened in Dice Masters. Even though there is a random dice pull, we've seen, I think, 3 characters who are just considered so strong, mostly because they're cheap. We've said this in our mini Gen Con episode. The next expansion, which we got to look at, only had 1 card that costed 2, and it didn't have any abilities.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking of Dice Masters too. Yeah, it's definitely... Because then it becomes a problem of, okay, well, we made... This thing is too powerful, so we put... This is the way to counter it. But then it's like, well, now... Essentially, every time you play the game, you have to either be that strong guy or the guy who counters it, or have that team that counters it. Otherwise, you're just nowhere. Or you have to then say those aren't allowed anymore.
Well, yeah, that's the biggest issue. Unfortunately, Magic had the same issue in their very first set. When they were just coming out, they made a lot of these cheap blue cards, and they gave the abilities to blue, which were really good. And because of that, it sort of led to a domino effect now that really blue's considered the best color of the 5. Even though, you want to play with each color, really blue's the one that really dominates because it's the one that stops everyone from doing things. It's the one that lets you get more resources from drawing. It's the one that lets you take extra turns. It's the one that counters spells so they don't even come into play. So it becomes really hard to balance that. Unless you don't catch it early on, and that's the problem with Dice Masters. Hopefully they've caught it early enough, and they find a way. I don't know whether they make a ban list or something. I mean, remember this is all tournament play. House rules, that changes everything.
But I guess back on track of I'm trying to think of what's the I feel like the perfect example of a pure skill-based game would be chess, right?
Yes, no, chess is
there's zero randomness. It's all, and that, to me...
that's what happened. I do strategy. Strategy B becomes good. It becomes... And then C, then D, then E.
I think it becomes not a game at that point. I mean, it is a game, but when, really high-level players, it's a math problem, you know what I mean? It's I'm going to do this, and your only choice is to do this.
That's why, another reason why I like the random... It really lets lower skill player have somewhat of an advantage to deal with the people. I know it really sucks when you're the best player and you get beaten up by that low level guy who's using a really stupid thing, but just got kept rolling 20s.
They got the blue shell or whatever it is. But I feel like for those really skill based games, the problem is you really have to play that game and have someone else who's really good at it to play with you and just stick to that.
Well, another big issue is entering it. If you enter, let's say you go to your local game store to play the game. Everyone else there is really good, you're not. It sort of sucks when you lose 10 times in a row and everyone's like, really?
And that makes it for publisher side, they don't want to do that because then less people want to play the game. because everyone's going to beat them unless someone brings them in and teaches them. But you're not going to have the same kind of inviting nature of these games that have a mix of the two.
Right, like a lot of the most popular games, the ones that we call like the gateway games.
Right.
Like Catan, Ticket to Ride, the King of Tokyo or New York.
Definitely.
While they do have their strategies, like depending on what you buy and stuff, they really have a random side. Like you don't know what tickets you're gonna buy for the route, and someone may accidentally build there. It's not even like trying to block you; they just doing their own thing. King of New York has the dice rolls, which changes everything, and Catan, someone rolls a 7.
I do think there's definitely a limit the other way too.
Oh no, yeah, no. Then you end up with Yahtzee.
Yeah, right. Or like even Munchkin, as we said in our Munchkin episode, can sometimes just feel like.
Well, I think half the reason also that is it usually becomes king making.
True. It's sort of because you have to. You're trying to get the card, and there's no way to determine what you're gonna get. But yeah, I mean, definitely. Maybe it almost seems like a cop out answer, but it is the answer to just say that you got to have a mix of both.
Well, no, it's not really. It's you have to be very careful if you go purely one way or the other. If you're going all random, you got to understand your game is so random it cannot be taken to like a really serious hard point because there's nothing serious because it's all random.
Well, I think
if you're going the other way, you have to understand that means there's going to become a high skill cap of entering the game because once it's out for a while, people are going to find out the best strategies, and they're going to keep doing them.
Yeah.
So it becomes like, what do you want to do? Middle is usually nice because usually you can still have people come in and enter, but you can still have strategies so more advanced people can play. So it's just easier for you for the publisher's point of view. I feel that's the thing.
Yeah, well, definitely. I think another big thing they need to take into consideration along the same lines is the length of the game too. Like you said, know what you're going for. So I feel like in a bigger game, a more luck is much less forgivable as opposed to like zombie dice or other small dice games. You're only going to play for 10 minutes, so the luck is sort of whatever.
Yeah, you don't want to be near the end of like 2 hours, roll die, and like, well, I just had to reset all my skills.
Which happens to us in many games where it'll just be like, well, there's a 3 in 6
Arkham Horror.
Right. There's a whatever it is, 2 in 6 chance right now that I'll win or I'll just die, and there's nothing I can do about it. And then it does feel like you might as well just walk away.
Well, and that's when like we said, stacking the deck really shines.
Yeah.
Or so to I guess that's what we're calling.
Yeah, modifying your
dice rolls
or whatever
card draws.
Yeah.
Whatever works. But
deck building, of course, similar thing.
Like most things in the world, there is no clear answer. It's usually a balance of everything. It's not black and white.
It is in fact gray in this case.
How many shades?
30.
30? Okay,
yeah.
30.
I'm trying to what's an example of a game that you think has the perfect balance of skill and luck?
Balance?
Yeah.
Well, I think most like I said, the card games I mentioned are the perfect balance because it's the randomness of your deck, but you stack the deck such a way that you still have a strategy. So I'm going to have to go with like Magic the Gathering.
But of course, I feel like that's I mean, I see what you're saying, but you have to still take into account all the other cards that are coming out, and that can change. But I see
that's still random. Has the randomness because you don't know if something's going to counter your strategy or something.
Right.
And the drawing, I've been able to play against a guy who had like a $400 deck, and mine was like 20, but I was able to just ruin his day, and he just was not getting any draws.
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say maybe Suburbia is pretty good, where you need a strategy, but like something where there's a random element.
No, that actually is a really good one because I just played a game this coming weekend.
Yeah.
And Casino came out, which makes it so you don't lose money when you go over these little like roadblocks.
It's a very powerful tile.
And I got it because I'm like, oh, this will be great, and my population rate will drop. I'll be able to raise it. There were no population rate tiles after that, so my population did not really rise at all. So I like lost miserably because. Then there's nothing. They just happened that the tiles taken out were all a lot of the population related ones.
Yeah, and I think that's the best. I like that. Yeah, when it's like when there's an element of luck, but you can see it from afar maybe, and you can kind of control or at least react to it when it changes, as opposed to just being a flip of a coin and that's it.
Yeah, no, I think it's all about luck in the short term.
Right.
But in the long term, there is a strategy.
Right.
Like bringing science into it. It's like weather. Weather is the luck because you can't really find out what the weather's happening. But overall, there's the climate pattern.
Right.
And that's what the strategy is.
It's the the big thing is that the luck doesn't make or break you.
Right.
Because otherwise,
or it doesn't make or break you on significant.
For the entire game.
Yeah, I mean, like every once in a while, if you throw in a card in there that's something silly, like roll 6 dice, if you have to get all 20s.
Right.
But no, that's the biggest issue.
But other than that, I think we're...
And then also make sure you have modifiers. I think that's another thing somehow. That usually the best games have that, and even then it doesn't work. Like Arkham is still nearly impossible to get successes sometimes with some of the modifiers. But I think that wraps it up for.
Yeah, we like a mix of both.
We do. we like being able to get into a game without feeling like an idiot for not knowing the best strategies.
Right.
But we like to be able to actually think of strategies.
But every once in a while, I would say I would rather play only skill than only luck. Usually, if I had to choose an extreme.
I flip. It really depends. If I'm tired, it's luck.
Oh yeah, I'm going on assuming I'm in a right state of mind. But anyway, tell us what you think. Which ones do you think have their strengths and advantages? What type of games do you prefer? You can.
Which ones really which games showcase those the best or worst, in your opinion?
Absolutely. You can let us know that in our comments below on the YouTube video or on our website, or you can send us an email. Our email address is rollforcrit@gmail.com. And if you want to send us any other ideas for topics of the week or any games or anything you want us to talk about, please, you can send us an email about that and we will discuss it.
Well, they can also, if they just want to say a short blurb, they can also tweet us. You can get us at rollforcrit or our personal Twitters, at Dorikiryu,
at Quence, and at Ivan Arhan. We love blurbs. Of course, a lot of the games that we discussed on today's show are available on our website, plus all of the news that we talked about. If you want to read more in-depth stories, please check out rollforcrit.com. We just put up a legendary Marvel playback episode. There's more playback coming later.
And of course, there's, like we said, there's plenty more Kickstarters. We can't choose them all.
We can't choose them all. We
and
can't
you can always
pick
look
them all
up. You can always look there to find out more. We've got plenty of information there, plenty of games to buy. Check it out.
I'm trying to say it's really good. Really good. You should definitely go to it. But that's it.
I think that sums it up for this week.
I think that sums it up. Thank you so much for watching the Roll for Grit podcast. My name is Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this has been the Roll for Grit podcast.